Welcome back to this new video. Today we'll be talking and I will be describing in my opinion, what Unai Emery could have done with this lineup or this team of players for Aston Villa against Chelsea. It was a detrimental match as Rodgers managed to score a goal as well as obtain an own goal by Cucurella. But eventually they fumbled and they let in 2 goals by the second half and they drew 2-2. They managed to get another goal, but it was counted as offside, and then they managed to get a goal against them, but eventually they were saved as VAR came in clutch again. So eventually, this is the lineup that Unai Emery started. By the second half, he was playing this lineup, a 4-4-1-1. As Rodgers had the only goal of the match, this brilliant talent right here. So eventually, what happened was Tielemans was eventually subbed off for Diaby. Tielemans came out injured. And so Unai Emery had to fiercely go back to a 4-4-2, bringing Mikin back to the middle midfield and bringing Diaby up top. So he basically intersected the lines between both Diaby and Mikin, as Mikin came back to center mid and Tielemans came back to striker. And as well as the second half, Emi Martinez getting injured with Robin Olsen replacing. So we have 2 changes by the second half, obligated changes, Diaby for Tielemans and Olsen for Martinez. So basically this is the lineup he had for this before the second half ended. Before the first half had ended, my apologies. He eventually left off with a 4-4-2. So from here, what I suggested was for him to place Cash on the right, Digne on the left, and spread out Conte and Torres. That way Mikin or Douglas Luiz most likely can fiercely come down, and that way you have a 5 in the back. But then you'd eventually move Diaby and Watkins a bit more forward, as you have Mitkin as the attacking midfielder, and then Bailey and Rodgers can work as counterparts in the wing. Basically, Mitkin is the start of the whole attack. This is the lineup I suggest: a 5-4-1, a 5-1-4 formation, as both Rodgers and Bailey are considered as wingers, and Diaby and Watkins can basically play fiercely up top. But another suggestion, if you want more depth in the midfield, I would have suggested moving Mitkin a little bit to the right and placing Rodgers to play as a center mid. That way you have Diaby playing left, Watkins playing forward, and you have Bailey playing as a right winger. And basically you'd set up a 5-2-3. Or if you want to play more defensively, you'd eventually move these two a little bit more back and you'd be playing a 5-4-1. So basically this is a setup I suggested him, because basically you'd have a 5 in the back against Chelsea's 4-2-3-1. Eventually their 3 attacking midfielders like Cole Palmer would be defended by Rodgers right here and Diaby at times. That way they can take the ball away, Mitkin can fiercely run forward, and then you have 3 awaiting up top. This is what's special about a 5-4-1, or what he could have used of the 5-4-1, because Cole Palmer is basically the main key of Chelsea. Cole Palmer himself. So what he could have done is pressured on Cole Palmer. That way no ball was to enter the area where Olsen was, or where Luiz was defending. There was no chance, because basically Palmer is the key player for Pochettino and for the whole team. Because Madueke, he's good on feet, he's good on speed, but he's not a player to be making plays within the area. He is a player to pass behind and then try to get into the box and just score from there. Other one is Nicholas Jackson. He is just one that awaits the ball. That's it. He doesn't do anything. Doesn't involve in play. Is too afraid to involve himself in play, and that is a very easily defended striker, which is why this season Palmer, an attacking midfielder, managed to be the top scorer of Chelsea with 28 goals, and their striker Jackson was only left with 10. Basically, Jackson is a good striker, I'd say, but not one that could fiercely find the ball and attack with much fierce and fury and strength. And Mudryk, he's another one like Madueke who's only in it for the goal, but not for the actual play. So Palmer is the general thing that Chelsea have. So all your job to do against Chelsea is defend Palmer, and that's it. You don't have to defend Madueke, you don't have to defend Mudryk, you don't have to defend Jackson, because they are completely useless in play. They only are in for the goal, and who's the one to play in? Palmer and Enzo Fernandez at times. But eventually you could have 3 on Palmer, and you could bring Mikin down to cover in for Konza and Luis. And that way you'd have the 3 up top, but eventually you'd have a bunched up defense. But if on the other side there's an offense or a counter attack, then we have Torres, Cash, and Bailey to support. Bailey goes first, Torres, and then Cash. That way, when the ball gets received, Cash can go down the flank, Rogers can pass it, Watkins can go up, and Cash can cross it in for any chance of goal. But if there's no chance, Cash will retrieve, proceed to go back, Torres stays here, and Watkins a little bit more back as well. So basically, all you need is to defend Palmer. That's all. Nothing else. Because the defense really doesn't make much work. And when there's corners, for any case that Chelsea has a lot of tall defenders, you can place in all your team here. All of them. At most, you could have Diaby play center, just in case the counter-attack happens. And basically this. You'd have Watkins and Diaby up top. Diaby to receive and play it to Watkins. Other than that, doesn't really matter. Just have all your players marking a man. I think 8 players is more than enough to eventually clear the ball away and either get it to Diaby or Watkins, who will be waiting up top. 2 forwards up top and you have everyone in the back. But generally, this is a very defensive formation, in my opinion, when you're leading a 1-0 or 2-0 lead. Because you can't fumble such a lead. You're winning by a lot. And I've seen a lot of teams do such. But because they don't tend to go into a defensive work rate, they tend to stick in themselves with an offensive work rate, thinking that they should score another goal. But no, you should not. You should maintain a defensive structure. And if they score one back, then you can go and eventually suit yourself back to your original formation, your original offensive formation. How do you do it with this 5-4-1? For example, you could just Watkins goes a little bit to the right, Diaby goes front, Rogers, Mikin and Bailey, but eventually you just Rogers can go a little bit wide, Bailey wide, Mikin stays a little bit to the right, Luis can go up as Torres and Konza can stay there. Cash and Digne can go a little bit down, and eventually you would once again maintain yourself with a 4-4-2. You could even play a 4-3-3 with this. All you have to do is place Diaby a little bit to the left, Watkins up top, Bailey to the right, and then if you want a defensive structure while having a 4-3-3, you could place Luis as a defensive midfield and have Mikin and Rogers as center mids. That's what's great about having a winger that can play center mid. You could switch your lineup into any formation you want, and you'd always have a midfielder here. Rogers works like a big win, and this is great. And also, it was kind of controversial bringing in apology for the pronunciation, the Roganum for Douglas Luiz and bringing Carlos or Bailey. What purpose does that bring? I believe the purpose he brought was to basically place Rodgers up and then place in a 5 in the back. But in game it didn't really seem that he was defending all that well, which is why he conceded two goals. And eventually even conceded 3, but luckily VAR was there. No goal was allowed. So basically you'd be playing this lineup, a 5-3-2. But basically this more narrow structure is, in my opinion, not so well as the width is corrupted. You need one to centralize their position downwards, and then Irobanam can eventually stick himself as a defensive midfield, be the central position, or you can move a little bit as you have space in the field, eventually place in Irobanam. That way you have 4 in the back, 2 wide, and 2 midfielders to be able to defend. These are your 8 central defenders at all times. Clear the ball away, you have 2 fierce attackers to be able to receive the ball. But I like Emery's thought of process because you can always have one attacking midfielder that can play it up to Watkins and not necessarily actually await the ball as a poacher, eventually playing himself as a structural striker as Watkins did. Eventually, later on, took off Diaby for John Duran. You could also play Duran there. You could also play Duran there. This was a bad change because there was no playmaker. No one else to actually go up because everyone has to be defending. So that change was controversial. He could have kept Diaby there and he could have made him a playmaker for Watkins at all times, as his original lineup was a 4-4-1-1. So you'd basically have like a 4-4-1-1, but a much more defensive one. As you have Konsa, Irobanam, Carlos, and Torres here as the midfield. Basically, make out Torres and Konsa as fullbacks, but eventually a much more narrow fullback. So you have Digne and Cash already defending on the width, and you also have Rodgers and Micken supporting them. That way, these two can stay up top and away for the ball at all times. Chelsea's a very offensive team, so generally they would have a chance for a counter-attack, or plenty of them if they wished. So yes, that's about it. That's my opinion. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and comment down below if you want to see more videos on this, or if you want me to do any sort of video. Just suggest, comment down below on what topic or what tactic or what managers could have done. And thank you for watching.